Joe Pardavila. This is the Forbes Books podcast, and female tech founders are in short supply, and women continue to struggle to gain equal access in tech. According to one survey, women hold only 5% of CEO positions at the technology leadership level, with 10% holding CIO and CTO spots. So this week, I'm highlighting the work of an up-and-coming entrepreneur and founder who's launched multiple companies in the past couple of years with a goal of achieving gender equality by empowering women in music and beyond. She also happens to be a rock star and a pretty good human being. Her name is Shira Yevin. Shira, how you doing?
Hi, how's it going?
It's going really well, and so I want to step back a few steps and talk about what led you to become an entrepreneur. And the first time I became aware of you is as a musical artist. So you don't see many musical artists / entrepreneurs unless their name's like Kanye West. So so let's go back to that. So what kind of music were you doing, and then how did that lead into entrepreneurship?
Yeah, absolutely. Back in the day, my all-girl band Shira Girl was on the Vans Warped Tour, which was a popular pop punk festival, and noticed there were absolutely no female musicians on stage. So we crashed the tour in our pink RV and ended up getting an invite back and created an official stage for female artists. And we hosted over 300 female artists and female fronted bands, including the rock icon Joan Jett and Paramore on their first ever tour. So this sort of just became a crusade. We got a ton of support, sponsors, we got press, actually got coined Gritty and Pink in the press. That's where the name came from. And we got into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame Warped Tour exhibit. And this was the biggest honor of my life, but it really just kicked off this crusade for me. I've just always had this urge to, carve out spaces for women in otherwise male-dominated spaces. Honestly, I think every artist is really an entrepreneur at heart. Maybe they don't realize it, but when you're an artist, you're essentially running your own small business. So some artists are better at it than others. Some artists kind of resist or delegate that out to another team. But, I think the best artists that end up having the most success do still kind of have a hand in the business and understand that it is a business at the end of the day if you want to make it your living. So yeah, I think I just always identified as an entrepreneur. I also think, as kind of like a rebel girl, you want to be in charge of your own destiny and you want to have time freedom. And, it's very hard to report to a boss every day and be told what to do. You're just used to being an independent person.
Yeah. And, it's funny because you were doing the crusade thing before it was cool. So when you when you decided to crash the Warped Tour and start this sort of, I guess, for lack of a better word, initiative, did you have people saying like, "Sure, what are you doing? Why are you rocking the boat? Just go play in the stage, wherever stage you can get on"? Why?
Absolutely, yes.
And how did you fight off those voices?
So people definitely told me from a career standpoint, you should just focus on your own band. Why are you promoting all these other bands? I just always had this urge to create a movement, and I was really influenced by the Riot Girl scene in Brooklyn in early 2000s. We had a sisterhood, and there were a few women I met that introduced me to Bikini Kill and zine culture and activism, and it was at the time, we were marching against the war and, for LGBT rights. And you're absolutely right. It was before it was trendy and accepted. My parents were horrified. But, and people now say, you were ahead of your time, and they kind of look back and the landscape is very different. But I just always had this voice inside my head saying, this isn't right. And I just felt like people that were out in the rest of, the country didn't see what I was seeing in New York, and I wanted to kind of bring that because we would have girls come up to us. We were playing in Indiana and, a little girl would come up and say, I didn't know I could be in the band. Now I want to be a drummer, and we would inspire girls. And for me, that was the biggest payoff.
And, another thing that you were kind of forward on, it was this sort of girls all together, female empowerment, because my whole life, I've heard that, oh my God, women are so catty. They're always, knifing each other in the back. But you, and obviously that's anecdotal. It's not all encompassing, but there is an element of truth to that. And so how were you able to bridge that together of this, instead of being female rivals, but being female sort of collaborators?
Great question. Well, I think in the music industry specifically, women were pitted against each other because we were told there's only room for one female band on this lineup, or we can only play one female band on rock radio at once, And you're from the radio world, so I'm sure you get it, and we were pitted against each other. But, if you look at the boys club, they lift each other up, so I think we just had to be the change that we wish to see, and as soon as we started promoting each other, walls kind of came down and women realized, wow, we really can get farther by supporting each other. It was definitely, that was a tough wall to break down because it is so ingrained in our culture and in our society. But I think once you get past it, you see you can get farther together, United we stand,
Yeah, absolutely. And so let's talk a couple of these entrepreneurial ventures. So obviously the first we should get into is Gritty and Pink, which is the platform you developed to empower women. For folks not familiar with how it works and what the mission is, talk about the day-to-day what Gritty and Pink does.
Gritty and Pink is a new platform to empower women in music. And we are actually building a marketplace network to connect women who work in all aspects of the music industry and industry partners and pros that want to hire diverse women. And, as you know, diversity, equity, and inclusion is a huge initiative these days. And as it should have been a long time ago, overdue. We feel that we're solving urgent problems for the music industry, which is very male dominated. For example, if you take producers, only 2.6% of popular music producers are women. Even artists, there's a misnomer that the ratio of male to female artists is 4-1 on the radio. It's still, and this is from the Annenberg study, just got redone in February of 2021. So yeah, you can see that women are still really underrepresented. And the thing is, Joe, we feel that not only is achieving gender equity and equality in the industry, the right thing to do, but it's also better for business. Because it's been proven in a lot of studies that gender diverse teams perform better. They make better decisions, and women-owned businesses have increased revenue. We're saying on all fronts, this is a good thing for the industry. And our big vision actually is to kind of start carving out in the music industry as our beachhead market, but we would love to become the global destination for female freelancers in every industry. So that's our big vision. But kind of a funny story, how Gritty and Pink started. To continue on my story about the Warped Tour, I actually teamed up with Kevin Lyman, the founder of Warped Tour, who has become a big supporter over the years, and he was, very supportive of our stage at Warped Tour. And Warped Tour ended in 2019, and we just thought, I want to do something beyond the Warped Tour. And I kind of came to him with my crazy ideas and, my 30-page deck. He's like, show me what you got, And I said, okay, we want to do events. We want to do media. We want to do brands. We want to do, content and partnerships. He said, okay, sounds great. I was like, I want to do an online network. He's like, sounds good. You need to focus. So, but we did have this vision of making sort of a big female, like Vans Warped Tour festival, type of festival. And so we thought, we'll start with events. And we actually kicked off a monthly event in LA at a club called The Satellite, which RIP is no longer existing because COVID killed it. But we kicked off this very special monthly. We thought, let's start small, build the brand, gain buzz as a monthly event, get content, get sponsors involved. Sailor Jerry came on board to sponsor. It was a magical event. We had January 2020, our first event, line down the block. We packed it. 40 of LA's best female musicians, including Eva Gardner, the bassist for Pink, and all kinds of female musicians that have played with major artists. We did 3 months. People were saying, we were filling a void in the LA music scene that hadn't been filled before. We had a Grammy special, Valentine's, Women's Month, and then, of course, COVID hit. We had to pivot, as everyone else did, and we started doing live stream fundraisers on Instagram. And, the first time we did it, we had no idea what it would be because, it was new for everyone. And 600 people showed up and we said, okay, we're on to something. We're also all locked down. All musicians were looking for, performance opportunities, connection. And so we started doing it every week and raising money for various charities, ACLU, Keep Abreast, Headcount. And we've raised thousands of dollars through these Instagram fundraisers. And we also were able to build our community.
Wow. And I want to circle back to something you mentioned there about the fact that women in the industry, whether it's the music or even in entertainment industry as a whole, they were never given these roles of authority, whether it's a director position or a producer position in music. As someone who's been doing this for a while, do you ever stop to think and be like, aren't we the ultra-liberal radical left who's all about feminism and equal rights? Why is this taking so long? Have you ever tried to wrap your brain around why it's taken this long?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's still taking a long time. And I mean, all I can say is that we do live in a patriarchal society still. And I think that we're really at a crucial time in history, where people are actually putting their money where their mouth is, and that's what you're seeing. And brands were forced to step up after the events and riots of last year. And, people really paying attention to social equality and systemic racism, sexism, and everything else that, we've inherited over the years in this country. And it's starting to really come to light. So, I'm hoping to see major changes. And to your point, I was doing this before it was trendy. So I think we already have seen major shift.
And what Gritty and Pink's doing, do you have, because everyone wants a story. So do you have any great stories that have come out of Gritty and Pink and how you've been able to connect these female artists?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't even know where to start with that. When we, as I mentioned, when we went kind of virtual over the pandemic, we had a lot of girls like reaching out to each other to collaborate. Everyone was doing these, quarantine videos where they were recording covers remotely and, collaborating on different videos. And it was just so great to see the community, a lot of them who had met through our events, collaborating online. And what we actually did is we built an online network, and we signed up over 150 of our artists, and we started doing virtual events. So we did workshops, how to build your Instagram presence, things like that. We did mental health, fitness, all kinds of things for artists. That's where we started to kind of build up this idea of the online network. And then, from there, that's kind of where the idea of the marketplace came from.
And that sort of leads us to In Pink, which you're just getting going, and it's in beta. And from just checking it out, it does have, to me, sort of this like Fiverr feel of connecting creatives. So am I right in that assumption there?
Yes, absolutely. Sites like Fiverr, Upwork, even Sound Better, those are definitely companies that we've looked at. We like what they're doing, but we really wanted to carve out something specifically for, diverse women and non-binary professionals and, gender marginalized groups. And the thing is, there is a huge demand now for diverse women and female freelancers. But again, there's this misnomer, that it's a pipeline problem. And because I experienced it from the very beginning. Oh, well, women don't play that kind of music, or there just aren't a lot of female producers. And it's just simply not true. Women just aren't offered the opportunities. They don't have the connections, the capital. And so what we realized when we were trying to just analyze what is the true problem is that, women need to get hired and they need to get paid, period. So that's why we sort of settled on this business model of a marketplace platform that we could really help give these women connections and actually put money in their pockets.
And so talk to me about the process of starting essentially a .com, because this is another form of entrepreneurship that is new to you. What kind of steps did you take? Because, you've been grinding for a while. I know you've done a lot of side hustles in your life, but now this is something that's a little more intense in terms of learning on the fly all of these things that you probably took for granted as a consumer in your life. So what were some of the steps you took to even get it off the ground?
So I'm very lucky to have an amazing team. And coming out of our Gritty and Pink events, we had some people step up, my band, other musicians in the community that wanted to be leaders. And, we started getting on the phone on Zoom, every week, just figuring out, what are we going to do? Remember in the beginning of quarantine when people thought it was just 2 weeks? Like my team didn't even think we had to reschedule our April event. We had Chickchella, and I said, guys, I don't think this is happening. They said, no, 2 weeks. But I had an amazing team. And luckily, Kevin Lyman, my advisor, the founder of Warped, teaches at USC. He linked me with the internship program over there. And these interns are amazing. I mean, these college students are so smart. And so between our community and some interns, I was able to really form a legit team. And everyone just, we were bootstrapping. We were working because of passion. We were working off the passion for the mission, and no one was getting paid. But, we showed up every week for these calls and building our social media, building our roster of artists. And, while behind the scenes, I'm kind of struggling to figure out what the business plan is, Googling like how to write a business plan. So figuring it all out, they say, when you're building the plane while you're flying it or whatnot.
Yeah.
So that was really how it worked. But I have an amazing team of advisors. I work with iFund Women. Karen Kahn, CEO of iFund Women, have to shout her out. She coached me, and other people in my career really stepped up to help. Jenny Rips, the founder of Al's Brew Boozy Tea, who was a company I had actually worked for pre-pandemic, she said she would help. And so I had an amazing team of advisors, colleagues, partners, interns, and that's really what helped. When it came time to build the marketplace, I didn't know what I was doing. I woke up one day and I was like, I'm a tech entrepreneur, and, there's this term non-technical founder. It's sort of controversial because some people say, it's an unnecessary term meant to divide founders. But I am more of a big vision founder, and actually currently in the search for an awesome tech person to join our team. So putting that out there. But I was able to build on a no-code platform, which a lot of advisors said, this is a great way to go because investors are sick of you coming to them and saying, give us money so we can build out our product before we've tested it and figured out product market fit. And so I was getting ready to fundraise actually right before, in the spring, late spring before the summer, and had a call with my advisors and, kind of came out of it thinking okay, we need more traction because what we had was success in the space, right? So right now we have a community of over 200 artists that we featured that have collective following of over 5 million on Instagram, 13 million on TikTok, so we have this incredible, vibrant community of emerging and next big thing artists, and now we want to expand to women who work in all aspects. But people told me, okay, great, you have 1 million impressions on Instagram. We've done over 20 brand partnerships from Fender to ACLU, raised thousands of dollars. But people said, you don't really have any traction, in your primary business model, which was the marketplace that we're pitching. So we went and built it on a no-code platform, built our MVP, our minimum viable product, did a beta test, and within the first week, we successfully ran over $2,500 in transactions. So we knew it worked, and wow. We knew we were onto something. Yeah, that's kind of where we're at now is we just said, okay, well, we built something. It's a little easier to pitch to investors now because they can get it, they can see it, they can feel it, and understand what it is we're building.
When I've spoken to a bunch of female-founded companies, the struggle that they always run into is they inevitably, when they walk into an office, when you can walk into people's offices, they're surrounded by a team of just men who don't understand female products unless they have like a teenage daughter that they can ask.
Right.
So what kind of struggle was that like for you when it came to, whether going the VC route, the angel route? What kind of struggle was that as a female founder to get men to understand that this is an important project and this could work?
I've been really surprised by that. We have built out our target list. It's a lot of funds that are specific to female founders and whatnot. We're just now kicking off our pre-seed round, but I had advisors, and one of my good friends is a male entrepreneur, owns several companies, and I didn't know if he would get it because, just kind of knowing him for a while and kind of thinking of him as a little bit more old school in his beliefs. And then when I ran it by him, he totally got it. And he was like, this is amazing. We do a lot on Upwork, and I would love nothing more than to know. He said he felt like it would pull at his heartstrings almost if he was like, helping out a single mom or something, and he actually, yeah, you mentioned, that a lot of them have daughters. He recently had a baby girl. So it's just funny, people surprise you, I guess is my point. Even if you think someone's not woke, they're not going to get it, but you never know what their experiences are. So I think that it's a turning point. But, I'm very much at the beginning of my fundraising journey. So I have heard a lot from I'm part of a mastermind group of solo female founders. And, I know that I'm going to face some challenges as I have in the music industry. Just the numbers don't lie. If you look at it, female founders get like 2 to 3% of all VC capital. So I know that, there are definitely, systemic factors up against me. But at the same time, I do feel, again, we're at a turning point. There are all these funds specifically set up for female founders and even other funds carving out space. Techstars just announced that they are committed to saving a spot in their music program for 50% for diverse founders, which includes women. So I think people are, stepping up and seeing that they need to be part of the change, part of the solution.
What kind of parallels have you seen between being a recording artist / entrepreneur, like you mentioned, to being a tech entrepreneur? Are there a lot of the skill sets transferable? I know you always hear about this transferable skills, and like recruiters don't believe in that. You do this one thing or you don't. So what kind of transferable skills did you have as an artist that you're using every day now as a tech entrepreneur?
Yeah, definitely grit, pardon the pun, but just that you have to keep at it, and it is discipline, and like literally waking up, working from 8 a.m. to like midnight every day, and like forcing myself to close the laptop, just persistence and thick skin, like when you're on stage, I've been booed off stage, like I've experienced it all. I performed to at a punk show to a crowd of 16-year-old hardcore boys with shaved heads, that booed before we even played a note. You know what I mean? You develop thick skin, and I think that's going to transfer over here nicely. I also think branding. You learn a lot about branding and marketing and how even sales, and all that transfers over.
And talking about the steps, you say you're sort of early round seed, but you also got accepted into the Long Beach Accelerator for startups. So talk to me about that opportunity and what it means for the company.
Absolutely. And we're so grateful for the Long Beach Accelerator. They're actually our first check-in. And shout out to Sunstone, which is the VC that's the funding partner. And we applied to the Long Beach Accelerator because I think it's a very cool program. They're really trying to make Long Beach, a destination for startups in LA. And Long Beach is such a cool community. We've played a ton of shows there, and there's a really vibrant art scene downtown. A lot of friends that live down there have considered moving down there. But we reached out to them, and it was kind of right after we had made some shifts in our the way we were kind of pitching and describing and being able to really spell out our big vision. And the woman who interviewed me actually had a history of funding women-owned businesses. So I could tell that she got it. Like when I pitch to someone, I could tell right away if they get it or if they care. Sometimes people are just listening and they're like, okay, it's not their thing. But she was so excited about the initiative and what we were doing. So it means a lot to me to work with a partner that, is really on board with the beliefs that, we're making an impact and doing something incredible, not just to create hopefully what becomes $1 billion company, but also to make an impact.
And, one of the things that we hear a lot about the tech industry is just sort of the ruthless nature of it, and sort of coming from the music industry, and you talk about developing this thick skin. Right. Have you heard about this, just like this really mean but like vicious world of tech? Have you seen any of that yet? Or are you just kind of hoping like, hey, so far so good, I haven't run into these really, really psychotic people, but are you prepared for that?
I mean, I'm prepared for anything, honestly. So I'm like, let's do this. Let's go. Like I said, I've seen all kinds of crazy stuff in the music business. I mean, I've been through the ringer, so I'm prepared for come what may. But I'm definitely learning every day. I'm very proud of how far we've come so far, and I know that we have a long road ahead of us, but the support has been incredible, and just got to keep going. I will say, when I found out that we got accepted into the accelerator, it was a very magical moment for me because I had been working 18 months, and a little backstory is I actually got laid off at the beginning of the pandemic. I was working in the beverage industry. When I lost my gig, to me, it opened up like a space in my life to really pursue what I wanted, and do something that I felt was my purpose. So when I got that email, I had a good feeling about it, and I was like checking my email every day. Like, I don't know if you've read The Secret. They say when you go to your mailbox, you got to expect a check, right?
Right.
Always expect a check. So I was every morning opening up my email first thing, expecting the acceptance. And I was actually visiting one of my investors who lives out in Puerto Rico, and it was my first morning there, and I woke up. So I got the email, and I ran out to the ocean, and I was just so I just felt so validated, because I was like, I knew it. I knew that it was going to pay off, and just getting that first check immediately, upped my confidence. And then, right after that, I secured a couple of angel investors because, no one wants to be the first check in. But then once you kind of get that validation, it legitimizes your business. And now going into my pre-seed round, I'm so much more confident because I know that we're onto something. So it just makes it all worth it. Everything that you go through and the fear of failure and the imposter syndrome, and I experience all that. And some days it's a slog and you don't want to work. And, ironically, when you work for yourself, you work harder than you've ever worked in your life. You don't want to work for a boss. You're like, oh, I want to own my own time. But then it's like 24/7, you're working on the biz, So I've had to figure out how to achieve life balance too with that. But it's everything that I went through, has been worth it. In that moment, I really just felt so validated. So I will say, I'm ready for come what may. It's all about those moments, that you just it pays off, I got interviewed by Alternative Press about Gritty and Pink last year, and they asked me, you've been on this crazy crusade, for so many years for women in music, and have you sacrificed a lot? I bet you had to give up a lot of things for this. And I said, absolutely. I have been single for 7 years, I'm this has been my focus, building my career and building, everything up, and really definitely have sacrificed a ton of things for this. But at the same time, I wouldn't have it any other way. I feel that it's a calling. It's a calling, honestly.
Yeah. And let's talk about this leadership journey you've taken. You joked about reading The Secret, but how have you prepared yourself to be a leader of a tech company? I mean, have you been reading books? Have you been seeking out mentors? Because that in itself is an education. To become a leader, you're not just born a leader. You have to develop those skills. So what have you been doing to develop that?
Definitely reading books, definitely mentors and advisors. I mean, my advisors helped me so much. And I have to shout out Dr. Alex Mayer. He has helped me a ton, just reposition my business. He owns like 12 companies. He has this company, Retail E-commerce Ventures. They bought up all these kind of dying brick and mortar brands, Pier 1, Models, Radio Shack, and turning them into successful e-commerce giants. So, talking to people like that who've been in my position, and he says, all right, step one, we got to get to $1 million recurring revenue. Okay, how do we do that? We got to get to X amount per month. It just breaks it down in ways I wouldn't have thought about it. So mentors is huge. Kevin Lyman, he's helped me a ton. And, not only with actually teaching me things and looking over the pitch decks, but also introductions are everything, when you're building a business and trying to get strategic partnerships and funding, of course. So, I can't thank my mentors and advisors enough. Tiffany Gaines, who has her own successful business, Shared Success. She's big in the hip hop community, and she's actually on the Forbes Council. And yeah, so I'm just so grateful for my advisors and mentors, honestly. And everyone needs coaches. Even, my coaches tell me I have coaches, and so sometimes you feel like, oh, I should just know this stuff. But no one just wakes up knowing everything, right? You have to learn.
And how difficult was that for you to ask? I mean, I guess in simple terms, like ask for help, because as we've talked about you being in the music industry, it's just grinding and just like playing and just doing your thing. And you don't really have a place to ask for help. So in this industry, for your growth, you need to ask. Was that difficult for you? Because I know some people it's hard for them to even consider, reaching out to someone or even reaching out to a stranger, God forbid, and asking for help. So how has that been for you?
Yeah, I'd say it was hard at first, but now I don't mind, because I just realized that's how you get places. And, and also you have to cast a wide net, because you can hit up 20 people on LinkedIn and maybe only 2 people will write back and give you their email. And then when you email them, only, one of those will actually give you the meeting. So, I've just kind of learned to get over that. I think as I get farther in my journey, I've become more confident and more ready to talk to some people. I have a good friend who just, sold his second business, and he's given me advice, and I check in with him every couple months, and you constantly have this voice in your head like, oh, you need to hit up this person, you need to hit up that person. And sometimes it takes like weeks till you're ready, because you're just doing other things. And, and it's hard not to be hard on yourself, because you're like, I should have talked to this person already. But then you realize timing is actually like, it's a journey. And by the time I do get on the phone with him, I'm way more prepared, because, X, Y, and Z just happened. I have updates, and so it's getting used to the journey and pacing yourself. And for me, it's also like a lot of like acceptance. Like you can't get everything done in a day, right? Rome wasn't built in a day. So being able to accept the timing and the rhythm of it, I think that's something I'm learning.
And knowing you for such a long time as I have, it seems like you're very at peace, even though you probably shouldn't be with everything that's going on. I mean, how have you been able to come to this point where I guess fulfillment is kind of a weird word to use, but you feel like you're finally serving the purpose that you've been on this path on for so many years. Am I correct in saying so?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And thank you. Like I said, it's still hard. I still have a lot of uncertainty. People say, oh, when you get the first check-in, it gets harder, because now you feel pressure. I'm going to be hiring a team, and then, their livelihood is going to be dependent upon me. And, so there is a lot of pressure, but, you just got to keep moving. And I have amazing founder friends that I can go to and, and say, how did you deal with this? And so outreach is really, I think, the key to, getting over that. But yeah, that you have to, at the end of the day, right, the good has to outweigh the bad, because otherwise, how are you going to stay motivated?
Her name is Shira Yevin. She is the founder of Gradient Pink and InPink.com. Shira, this sounds like you're doing amazing work, like you've always done in your entire career, but now you've focused in on this and helping female entrepreneurs. And I can't wait to see what comes next of InPink and all the work you're doing with Gradient Pink. So thanks again for the time.
Thank you so much. And I just want to say, if you're listening and you know any female freelancers that touch the music industry in any way, it doesn't have to be musicians or even producers. It could be publicists, photographers, anything like that. Check out In Pink Beta and you might be able to join the beta group. So that's exciting. And yeah, thank you so much, Joe. Such an honor to be here.
The pleasure was all mine. And that's it for this episode of the Forbes Books Podcast. If you enjoy the show, make sure you take a second to subscribe so you automatically get new shows when they drop. Also, if you have a minute, I'd love if you left us a review so more amazing entrepreneurs like yourself can discover the show. And please, don't forget the golden rule and treat others as you want to be treated. Thanks for listening. Until next time, adios.
This has been a production of Forbes Books Radio. Find out more at ForbesBooksRadio.com.